I should warn you right from the start. If you're watching this late at night, you might want to turn on a light. People think the ER is chaotic during the day, but the night shift has a personality of its own. Quieter at first, almost peaceful, until it isn't. And the moment you let your guard down, something strange, heavy, or simply unexplainable walks right through those sliding doors. I've worked nights long enough to know that when things get too calm, it's only because the worst stories are lining up, waiting for their turn to unfold. And what I'm about to tell you tonight, well, these are the ones that still keep me up at night. It never starts dramatically. Night shift begins with the hum of fluorescent lights, the distant echo of someone coughing, that faint medicinal smell that clings to the walls, the floors, your clothes, everything. The hospital I work in is old, and at night, it shows. The hallways creak for no reason. The AC makes these long groaning sounds, and every once in a while, a monitor beeps, even though no one touched it. You learn to ignore all of that. You have to. If you don't, it gets in your head. And once the night gets inside your head, you're done. On the night this first story took place, things had been so calm that everyone kept joking we'd actually get through an entire shift without chaos. That's something you never say out loud in an ER. It's like summoning something that was just waiting for you to slip. And right on cue, the radio crackled, the front doors slid open, and our little bubble of peace collapsed instantly. The paramedics came rushing in with a man who was awake but completely confused. His eyes kept darting around like he wasn't sure where he was, or who he was. Every time someone asked a question, he gave a different answer. Name, age, what happened, why he was out there walking alone at night. Nothing matched. It was like talking to a dozen different people stuck inside the same body, all of them interrupting each other. And the thing that unnerved me wasn't just that he was confused, but the way he kept whispering. I wasn't supposed to see it. I wasn't supposed to see it. Over and over again. At first I thought maybe he had taken something or had a neurological issue, but while we tried to calm him down, he kept staring past me, at something over my shoulder. There was nothing there. Not a person, not a shadow, just empty hallway. But he looked terrified, like he expected something to come around the corner any second. His hands were shaking so hard I could hear the monitor cables rattling. I remember leaning toward him and speaking gently, trying to ground him. You're safe here. Whatever you think you saw, it can't get you here. He stopped shaking instantly. His eyes locked onto mine, sharp and focused for the first time. And in this calm, almost eerie tone, he said, "You think these walls stop anything?" I still don't know why that sentence sent such a chill through me. Maybe it was the way his voice dropped, almost like someone else had spoken through him. Maybe it was the timing. The lights above us flickered right after he said it, even though the power didn't actually go out. Tiny things. But on night shift, tiny things can hit you like a punch. We tried to keep him stable, running tests, taking vitals, doing all the usual protocols. But every time we stepped away, he would start whispering again. Not loud enough to understand, just enough to feel like something was crawling under the skin of the room, and every time I came back to check on him, his eyes were somewhere else. Sometimes fixed on the corner, sometimes on the ceiling, sometimes staring down at the floor like something was moving there. At one point, when I walked in, he was sitting completely still, staring at the heart monitor screen. Not at the numbers, but at the reflection of the room in it. And he asked me, "If something is behind me right now, would you tell me?" That's the moment I realized my hands had gone cold. Before I could answer, another call came through the radio. A teenage girl was being brought in, found alone on the side of the road, shaking, disoriented, with no injuries but refusing to speak. Cases like that are always unpredictable, so we prepared a room for her immediately. When she arrived, she wouldn't let go of the paramedic who brought her. She looked terrified of us, terrified of the hospital, terrified of everything. But the thing that froze me was when she finally lifted her head enough for me to see her eyes. They looked exactly like his. Same wide, haunted, hollow expression. She didn't talk for the first 20 minutes. Just sat there clutching the blanket so tight her knuckles turned white. But she reacted every time she heard sounds from the other room, the man who kept whispering, even though she shouldn't have been able to hear him from where she was. At one point, she whispered to me, barely audible. He saw it too. That was the moment I felt the shift, the kind that every ER nurse recognizes. Not medical, emotional, atmospheric, something heavy settling over everything. I asked her gently, "What did he see?" She shook her head, her breathing getting faster. "It follows people who walk alone at night. It doesn't make noise. You don't know it's there until it wants you to. Now look, I deal with trauma, shock, panic, hallucinations, dissociation, delusions. I've heard people say things that don't make any sense when their brain is under stress, but something about the way she said it, with that flat certainty, it didn't sound like fear explaining something. It sounded like fear remembering something. And the weirdest part? When I stepped out to check on the man again, he had stopped whispering for the first time since he arrived. His whole posture changed. He was sitting perfectly straight, staring at the same ceiling tile, like he was watching something only he could see. I called his name twice. No reaction. When I snapped my fingers near his face, he didn't blink. But the heart monitor showed his pulse climbing, fast. When I finally touched his shoulder, he flinched violently and gasped like he'd just surfaced from underwater. Then he turned to me with this expression I'll never forget, like he was relieved to see me, actually relieved. He grabbed my arm and said, "It didn't follow me inside. It found someone else." Before I could ask what that meant, a scream echoed down the hallway. It came from the girls' room. But when we rushed in, she wasn't screaming anymore. She was frozen in place, staring at the doorway like she expected something to walk through it. Nothing was there. The hallway was empty. But she kept staring, breathing fast, repeating, "Don't let it in. Don't let it in. Don't let it in." We tried to comfort her, stabilize her, reassure her. But her fear wasn't like trauma. It was like she was reacting to something happening in real time. Something she felt but we couldn't see. And then, something stranger happened. In the middle of all the commotion, both monitors, hers and the man's, lost signal for 1 second. Not long enough for the machines to reboot, not long enough for a real power issue. Just 1 second. Both screens turned black at the same time, a single electronic click. And then they came back. But for that 1 second, every single person in the hallway stopped moving. It felt like the air thickened, just for an instant, like the hospital inhaled. After that, everything got weirdly quiet. Not calm, just quiet in a way that felt intentional. The man was suddenly relaxed. The girl finally stopped shaking. And for a moment, it was like whatever had terrified them had simply vanished. But the strangest thing was what happened hours later, near the end of my shift. Both of them, who weren't related, who didn't know each other, who weren't even brought in from the same area, gave the exact same description of the thing they claimed was following them. Same height, same distance behind them, same silence, same moment they realized it was there. Two different people. One who had been walking home from work. One who had been out with friends and left early. Different streets, different situations, same detail. It was standing just outside the glow of the streetlight, close enough to see the outline, too far to see the face. By the time the morning shift arrived, both patients had stabilized. The man finally fell asleep. The girl finally stopped trembling long enough to drink water. But something about their story stuck with me. I still don't know if it was a coincidence, a shared delusion, something neurological, something psychological, or something else entirely. All I know is that later that morning, when I finally walked out to the parking lot after my shift ended, The sun wasn't fully up yet. The light was low, the shadows were long, and for just a second, I thought I saw something shift at the edge of the pavement, just beyond the line of the streetlight. I don't scare easily. I've worked hundreds of nights, seen things most people will never see. But that morning, I got into my car faster than I ever have before, and I didn't look back. And that's only the beginning of what the night shift has shown me. Because on another night, not long after that one, we had a case that seemed normal at first, routine even. But it ended with me questioning something I had always believed about hospitals, that every sound has an explanation, that the walls don't listen and the rooms don't remember. I learned that night that some rooms remember everything. And what happened inside one of those rooms is the second story that still keeps me awake. But to tell you that one, I need to take you back to a night when the hospital felt colder than usual, even though the thermostat said otherwise. It began with a call from triage about a man lying completely still, eyes open, not speaking, not blinking, just breathing slowly like he was waiting for something. When I walked into his room, the first thing I noticed wasn't the patient. It was the temperature. Hospitals run cold, sure, but this room felt like someone had opened a freezer door and forgotten to close it. I could actually see my own breath when I exhaled. That shouldn't happen. Not in a climate-controlled ER, not at 3 a.m, not anywhere in the building. The man on the bed looked completely awake, eyes wide, staring at the ceiling as if he were watching something moving across it. When I tried speaking to him, he didn't answer. His eyes didn't shift, not even a millimeter. But his breathing changed. Slow and deep, then suddenly shallow and fast, then calm again, like he was reacting to something only he could see. I checked his vitals. They were fine. Too fine. Perfectly stable despite the fact that his whole body looked tense, like he was bracing for impact. I stepped out for a moment to grab a warm blanket, thinking maybe he was just freezing, but when I came back, the temperature of the room had risen to normal again. Not gradually, instantly. The air felt warm, almost heavy, and the man's eyes were no longer fixed on the ceiling. He was staring at me. His expression didn't change. His face was blank, unreadable, but his eyes. Those eyes looked like he had been waiting for me specifically. I'd seen fear, confusion, panic, delirium. None of that was there. What I saw instead was recognition. Not like he knew me personally, but like he recognized something about me, something I didn't know I was carrying. I stepped closer and asked again, "Can you hear me?" He blinked once. Then, with the slowest, most careful movement I've ever seen a patient make, he raised his hand and pointed toward the mirror on the wall. Not the door, not the window, not the hallway. The mirror. In an ER room, the mirror is angled so we can see behind us while we work. It's a convenience, nothing more. But the way he pointed at it made me turn instinctively. Slow, cautious, almost hesitant. There was nothing there, just my own reflection, tired, blurry under fluorescent lights, hair a mess from hours of running around. But then the patient spoke for the first time. It wasn't me in there. I froze. His voice was calm, almost too calm, like someone describing a painting instead of something terrifying. I asked him quietly, "What do you mean?" He swallowed, eyes still locked on the mirror. "When you walked out." The reflection didn't move. The air in my lungs felt tight. I knew what he meant, even before he clarified. He had seen his reflection, or mine, do something it wasn't supposed to do. People hallucinate. People misinterpret shadows. I've seen countless episodes like that. But his tone didn't match delusion. It matched certainty, memory, experience. He continued. "It was standing right behind you, in the mirror, not here." I looked again. Nothing. just a regular reflection. But even though the room looked normal, something felt off, like the air had weight. I gently placed my hand on his wrist to check his pulse again. It was steady, too steady for someone describing something so unsettling. His eyes never left the mirror. He wasn't scared anymore. He wasn't trembling. He wasn't confused. If anything, he looked resigned. Then he whispered, "It doesn't stay in one place. It follows whoever sees it." I've heard lines in horror movies that sounded less rehearsed than that, but in real life, when a patient says something like that with absolute sincerity, it creates a feeling you can't shake. I asked, "What follows?" He finally turned his head toward me. "The thing that stands behind the glass when no one else is looking." That was the moment the lights flickered again. Not all of them, just the ones directly above us. They dimmed for a split second and then came back brighter than before. The monitor beside him crackled with static for no reason. The temperature shifted again. This time not cold, but warm, almost uncomfortably warm. And then he sat up. He moved slowly, deliberately, like he wasn't in a hurry. I stepped back instinctively, not out of fear of him, but out of fear of the atmosphere in the room. Something was wrong. Something thick in the air, like humidity without moisture. He lifted his hand again and pointed at the mirror. This time, when I looked, I swear on my entire career I thought I saw my reflection blink a half-second later than I did. Just slightly. Just enough to make me doubt myself. But hesitation is enough. That tiny fraction of a second was enough to make me step back again. The man said softly, "It sees you now." My skin crawled. I knew I shouldn't let a patient get into my head, especially one who came in unresponsive and confused. But this wasn't the same man who had been wheeled in. He was calm, entirely aware, speaking clearly. Something had changed. I did what any nurse would do. I stepped out to grab a physician. When I returned with the doctor, the patient was lying back down, eyes closed, breathing steadily as if he had been asleep for hours. And the room felt normal again. Temperature steady, lights normal. Mirror just a mirror. The doctor checked him and shrugged. Looks stable. Probably just exhaustion. But I knew what I had seen. Or thought I'd seen. And even if I was imagining things, the feeling stayed with me for the rest of the shift. That was story number 2. The third happened months later, on a night when the ER was flooded with calls and we barely had time to breathe. The kind of night where every room is full, every hallway has a stretcher, and you're running on instinct more than anything else. It was around 4 a.m. when I got assigned to a patient in room 9, a room nurses avoided whenever possible. Room 9 had a reputation, not an official one, just a feeling everyone had. You'd walk inside, and the air felt wrong. People jokingly said the thermostat was broken because that room was always colder than the others. Others swore they heard things in there when the room was empty. I didn't believe any of that. Not really. Not until that night. The patient was a woman in her late 30s, brought in by her roommate after she started panicking at home for reasons she couldn't explain. She kept saying someone had been knocking on her bedroom door even though no one was there. By the time she arrived, she was trembling, barely able to speak. When I walked into room 9, she was sitting up, hugging her knees to her chest, eyes darting toward the door every few seconds. I tried calming her down, speaking gently, assuring her she was safe. And for a moment, she seemed to relax, until she stopped mid-sentence, eyes widening as she stared at the corner of the room behind me. "There it is again," she whispered. I didn't turn around immediately. I didn't want to. The instinct to freeze hit me harder than I expected. When I finally gathered the courage to look, there was nothing there. Just an empty corner, clean walls, the shadow of equipment on the floor. She reached out suddenly and grabbed my wrist. hard. You don't see it. Her nails dug into my skin. I tried to reassure her again, but she shook her head violently. No. It followed me here. It followed me from home. It doesn't knock anymore. Now it just waits. She pointed again at the corner. Not the doorway, not the window. The same corner everyone felt weird about. I asked her what it looked like, but she shook her head. You don't look at it. If you look at it, it gets closer. Her words hit me like a cold breeze. I tried to explain that the mind can play tricks when someone is in extreme stress, but she wasn't listening. Her eyes stayed locked on that corner the entire time, and what terrified me wasn't what she said. It was how still she became, completely rigid, like she was bracing for something. I stepped away to call the doctor. When I returned less than a minute later, she wasn't looking at the corner anymore. She was looking directly at me, and she said something I still think about. It's behind you now. I spun around instantly. There was nothing. But when I turned back to her, she was shaking again, breathing fast, eyes wide with terror. And right when I tried to reassure her, the lights in room 9 went out. Just room 9. Not the hallway, not the rooms next to it. Only room 9. I pulled out my phone flashlight immediately, and the patient screamed. This short, sharp scream like someone grabbed her. I rushed to her side, trying to calm her, but she kept pointing around the room in the dark, saying it was moving, circling, waiting. Then the lights flickered back on. The room was empty, nothing out of place, no shadows where they didn't belong. But the patient wouldn't look at the corner again, wouldn't speak, wouldn't move. She kept her eyes on the floor, breathing shallowly like she was trying not to attract attention. She left the ER at sunrise, exhausted but stable. But later that morning, when I walked past room 9 again, empty, lights off, I thought I saw something move in the corner. A shift, a flicker. The kind of thing you dismiss in daylight but dread at night. The fourth story happened on a shift where everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Equipment failures, staff shortages, power fluctuations, the perfect storm. And in the middle of all that chaos, we got a call about a man who had been brought in after collapsing at work. He was conscious, but barely speaking. When I approached him, the first thing he said was, "Don't let them turn off the lights." I asked him why. He whispered, "They move in the dark." Before I could ask what he meant, he grabbed my hand weakly. "They hide in the corners. They whisper when the power goes out. I heard them for weeks. I pretended I didn't, but they know when you pretend." He shook his head slowly, eyes already glossing over. "If the lights go out, cover your ears. They try to get in that way." Moments later, the power flickered. Not fully off, just long enough to make the monitors beep. The hallway lights flickered too. For a split second, everything in the ER went quiet. And in that silence, I swear I heard something. Not a voice, not a person, just something. A hum, a vibration, a low noise like someone exhaling right next to my ear. When the power came back, the patient stared at me with a resigned expression. "You heard it, didn't you?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to, because I had heard something. He smiled weakly. "Once you hear them, they know you." I stepped out of the room to call the doctor, and when I returned, the patient had fallen asleep. The power didn't flicker again for the rest of the night, but every time the lights dimmed even slightly, I felt my entire body tense up. That night made me realize something important about the ER. People come in because something happened to them out there, but sometimes out there finds a way to follow them inside. And maybe the hospital isn't the safe barrier we pretend it is. The last story I'll tell you happened recently, and it changed the way I walk into work. It started as the kind of shift that's almost too quiet. No calls, no stretchers, no rush, just silence. And if this video teaches you anything, it should be this. Silence in the ER is never a blessing. It's a warning. Around 2 a.m., an elderly woman was brought in by ambulance. Conscious, stable, but deeply unsettled. She kept saying she had heard knocking all night. Not on her door, on her walls. Slow, deliberate knocking, like someone was tapping from the inside. Her son thought she was confused. The paramedics thought she was anxious. But when she came in, she kept repeating the same words. You can hear it in the hospital, too. We placed her in a room near the back, away from the noise. I tried to comfort her, telling her the ER is noisy at night and sounds get distorted. But she shook her head. It's not a sound, she whispered. It's a message. I asked her what the message was. She leaned toward me so slowly it made my skin crawl. It's saying, "Let me out." Her voice trembled like she was repeating something she wished she hadn't heard. Before I could respond, there was a noise in the hallway. A soft tapping. 3 knocks. Slow. Even. Like someone testing the wall. I looked out the doorway. The hallway was empty. The woman nodded. See? The tapping continued for hours. Sometimes down the hall. Sometimes closer. Sometimes on the wrong side of the wall. By sunrise, the noises stopped. The woman's vitals were stable. She smiled at me before leaving and said, "It wasn't meant for me. Be careful walking home tonight." That sentence stayed with me. On my way home after that shift, at the first red light, I reached for my phone. The street was empty. Quiet. Calm. Too calm. Then, 3 taps, right on my rear window. I turned slowly, but there was nothing behind me. I drove the rest of the way home without stopping once, and now you understand why night shift stories don't fade with time. They grow. They follow you. They wait for the right moment to remind you that some things don't stay in the hospital. Some things walk out with you. I've learned to live with it, but every once in a while, when I get ready for another shift, put on my scrubs, tie my hair back, and step into that glowing hallway with all its flickering lights and strange shadows, I swear I hear something walking just a little too close behind me. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this video. Sharing these night shift stories means more than you can imagine, and knowing someone out there is listening makes the long nights feel a little less heavy. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe, leave a like, and share this video with someone who loves eerie, real-life ER experiences. Your support helps this channel stay alive and lets me keep bringing you the stories that happen when the rest of the world is asleep. See you on the next shift, if the lights stay on.